attacking the latest artifact characters. Hi everyone, it's Licefile and welcome to another artifact video. Today the last characters don't mean the end of the rules, since the last video will be the different game modes, including single player. Today's program features just 3 characters: the Geomancer, the Meteorologist, and above all, what's going to be the biggest part of this video, the Shadow. Let's start with the Geomancer. To begin with, you simply add this Geomancer tile to your available actions. The Geomancer will add these famous cards to each player, so there are 16 cards per player, so all players have the same cards. And the idea is to have cards to activate during the management phase so that you can activate them later during the confrontation phase. So the idea is to load these cards and then turn them over so that they're ready for the confrontation phase. Now let's see how it works. You'll notice that I've put the merchant on the side, because like all characters, he needs money to be used. When I perform a Geomancer action, I'll pay for my gem as usual and pay a cost of 2 coins. After paying those 2 coins, I'll choose Alpha or Beta, and depending on the number on one of those dice, well, I'll be able to put them on a Geomancer card. I'll have to show you a little example. I've got an Alpha 4 and a Beta 3. Let's say I take the 4. I take this card which has points aligned on either side. If I place the 4 on top, it will light up 1, 2, 3, 4 diodes. To indicate that they've been activated, we'll place energy cubes on them. And that's how it's going to work. We're going to have to light the diodes with the dice we collect. So you see, the idea is that a 1 is just 1 diode to light. A 2 is 2 adjacent diodes. A 3 is 3 diodes. A 4 is 4 adjacent diodes in a square. A 5 is a little more complex since it requires a cross shape, so we'll often use another method to place it. And 6 requires 3 adjacent diodes, so that's the basics. After a few actions, you'll be able to activate all the diodes on a single card. At that point, you turn it over. And that means it can be activated during the confrontation phase. Now, I told you that 5 is sometimes a bit complicated to activate. For example, there are only 3 tiles with a true 5 cross shape. But the big advantage of the Geomancer is that you don't have to activate just 1 tile at a time. Geomancer tiles can be stacked to activate diodes in different ways, and above all, to mix them between 2 tiles. But all this has to be done with the top part of another Geomancer card. For example, I take a card and place it on top so that I can place a die much more easily. It's a way of being able to place diodes on our cards when the die wouldn't let us do so in the first place. So that's how you activate a card. And in the confrontation phase, we simply activate the card either by flipping it over completely, or if it lasts several turns, first tilting it, then flipping it over again. And these card effects can be both beneficial and completely harmful, making walls appear, making magma appear, inverting the right and left of each player, making all artifacts more resistant. In short, there are 16 of them, and I'll let you have a look at them in the appendix. So much for the Geomancer. Now let's move on to the other 2 characters. Please bear with me as regards the materials used for these characters, as I printed them with my own little hands. Well, my printer and my laminator. Let's start with the Meteorologist. The Meteorologist will prepare herself throughout the management phases, modifying things that happen in the arena and bringing items into the arena that you can pick up and equip yourself with during the confrontation phase. The Meteorologist is going to use these 3 little things, which are in multiple copies and which you can't see anyway. I'm showing them as illustrations to be placed between rounds. Here I don't have the definitive version of the rounds, it's still a prototype. When you define the ability, i.e., when you roll 3 dice and discard 1, the discarded die will place a climate token before the last number of the round on which the round marker has moved. For example, here I've rolled a 2, I move the marker token by 2, and then I place one of the weather tokens there. But which of the 3 do I place? Well, I place the one with the color of the die. For example, this is a yellow 2, so between round 1 and round 2, I'll place a weather token of that color. If I had discarded a red 4, I'd move the marker 4 notches and place a red weather token between round 6 and round 5. So, as usual, we move the time marker back by the number of the discarded die, but in addition to that, we're going to place weather tokens on it. This is independent of the weather action, as you'll be adding the weather action to your action possibilities. When you activate the Meteorologist, you spend your gem as usual and pay a number of coins equal to beta. Then, the player taking the action has two options. The first is to move a climate token or swap the place of two climate tokens already present. The second option is to place one of our cubes on a climate token in order to recover a climate resource at that moment. So far you don't understand, but that's normal because in fact the Meteorologist will be doing a lot of preparation, but most of the action will take place in the confrontation phase. You can't place more than one cube per climate token, so it takes up space. During the confrontation phase, different meteors may appear. If the round token is enclosed by two weather tokens, for example, I'm on round 2 right now, and there's a red token above it and a yellow token below it, well, this will define a climate for that round of confrontation. I'll tell you what the climate does right after I explain what happens when you arrive in a climate. When the round token crosses a climate token, if it's enclosed by two tokens, well, that activates a climate. If it's only enclosed by one token and not two, then the basic climate is temperate. And whatever the type of climate resources will appear. We'll use a coin generation process, as we did for the merchant, i.e. we'll roll a die and that will define which coins will appear. In this corner, I'll throw a die and this coin will appear. In this corner, I'll throw a die and this coin will appear. And we repeat this process until an object appears in each corner of the arena. But you'll notice that there's a problem with the fifth one, which is elemental geodes. So which geodes appear? Well, it depends on the weather. If it's surrounded by two blue tokens, it's in superior water geode. If it's surrounded by one red token, one yellow token, it's a superior air geode, and so on. All this is a reminder. And in the case of a temperate climate, well, with the 5, 2 energy cubes will appear in a corner of the arena. It's still interesting, but it's not the same thing. And these resources, when players move around the arena and step on them, they'll be able to pick them up and install them directly in their machine. So you're getting a boost during the battle phase, which can be pretty powerful. And especially for players who, during the management phase, when they've taken the Meteorologist action and placed one of their energy cubes on one of the climate tokens, well, when the round marker crosses one of these climate tokens on which there was a cube placed, well, the player who had placed these cubes will be able to retrieve one of the climate resources that was generated, free of charge, without having to step on it. Now that I've told you that, what are climates good for? Well, climates increase the power of the machines present. Depending on your machine's heart, you'll gain movement, attack, and defense. Let's imagine you have a water heart and the climate is surrounded by 2 blue tokens. At that point, artifacts with a water geode heart will gain +6 movement, +6 attack, and +6 defense. And a bit like a damage wheel, but this isn't damage, you get the idea. The other hearts will also gain bonuses, but a little less strong. And above all, the opposite heart, in this case fire, gains absolutely nothing. And so, depending on the climate, we'll have artifacts in the field that will have more or less power and more or less bonuses. It's quite clever because during the management phase, you're really going to be fighting over, I want to have such and such an element at such and such a time, which can also provide information on what the heart of your machine might be. So it's a constant battle to get the best advantage in the arena. So much for the Meteorologist, and now we attack the biggest part of this video, namely the Shadower. The Shadower is an action to be added, so as with the Meteorologist, well, I printed it myself. And each player gets a box like this one. Well, not like this one since it's a prototype, but you get the idea. This cover, well, we're going to place dice underneath it, and the others won't know what we've put there. When we activate the Shadower, we'll spend our gem as usual, we'll spend 2 coins, and we'll place a dice in the direction we want under the cache. Each dice value will have an effect. So in itself, it's one action, but in the end, it's a bit like having 6 actions in that one action. So during a preparation phase, you're going to do more or less of the Shadower action, and therefore put more or less dice with certain values under the cache. When a preparation phase is over, we'll reveal the dice you've placed under the cache and activate their effects. The first choice is number 1. Number 1 is spying. First of all, it earns you 5 coins and lets you look at something in another player's home. What he's got behind his screen, his geodes that are face down on his architectonics, things like that. And he makes as many as the number of ones he's put under his cache. Number 2 is theft. The player who has chosen a 2 will designate another player, and the player who is about to be robbed will take 3 items from his personal reserve, show them to the player, and divide them between his 2 hands. Hold out your hands and say, which hand do you choose? So, depending on which hand you've chosen and how you've split it, the player may be able to recover quite a few resources from you. If the player who has activated the theft has placed several dice with a value of 2 under the cash, he can either take several theft actions or take a more powerful theft action. For example, if he had placed 2 dice with a value of 2 and he discards both dice at once, he can ask his designated player to steal 6 coins at once, thus dividing the 6 coins into 2 piles in his hands, and so he can win more or fewer items. Number 3 is Sabotage. If you put a 3 under your cash, you'll be able to perform a Sabotage action at the end of a preparation phase. How does Sabotage work? All players involved in Sabotage, i.e. with a 3 under their cash, can point to a player with their finger. If there's a majority, that player will be sabotaged. But above all, if you put several 3s under your cash, you won't have one finger to point at, but a second and maybe a third, but I don't have enough arms at the moment. So the more 3s you put under your cash, the more possible votes you have for sabotage. Then, the person who has been designated as sabotaged will take one of the 6 and one of his machines will be sabotaged. He'll set a number for 6 of his machines, and then there'll be a 7th that's discarded that can't be sabotaged. I say define a number for one of his machines because we have the constructor, the improver, the fortifier, the fuser, the architectonics, the kinematics, and the ballistics. We choose a number for each, roll a die, and the machine sabotaged will be in accordance with that die. In this case, I rolled a 5. Let's imagine I'd really done everything in order, i.e. everything except ballistics, builder, improver, fortifier, fuser, and architectonics. Architectonics is my 5, so I'm going to place a sabotage token on architectonics. This means I won't be able to perform the architectonic installation action in the next preparation phase. This can be a real pain, and so you choose the figure you want. For example, the kinematics could be 1, the improver could be 2. You define that when you do it. But if you really have something you absolutely want to do next turn, you say that number 7, which isn't counted in the sabotage, well, that's such and such a machine. So much for sabotage. Now, the next one. If you choose number 4, when that 4 is revealed, you can place one of your betting cards in the betting pile provided. And for each die you've marked 4, you can place a card. But you can't place more than 2 betting cards. What are we betting on? We bet on who's going to win the next confrontation phase. So, as the rounds progress, this betting pack will increase, and at the end of the next confrontation phase, we'll reveal this betting deck in reverse order. We'll turn the deck over and put in the first card, the second card, the third card, and so on. The earlier you vote and the more you're right, the more money you'll earn, and above all, 10 prestige points, 10 victory points. If you're right, you win 5 coins, plus a number of coins equal to the number of players present, plus 1 coin for each card above the pile, hence the idea of having voted much earlier, plus 1 coin for each card missed in the pile. On the other hand, you get fewer coins if you put 2 cards in the pile instead of 1. But in any case, you win 10 victory points if you were right in your bet, so it can still be interesting, you see. With the number 5, you can bribe. When a 5 is revealed at the end of a preparation phase, you put as much money as you like into a small bag that you keep secret. This sum, which you will accumulate over the preparation rounds if you place 5s in it under your cash, will be used for many things, votes that you will make in the game. A vote is simple. When it's time to vote on something, we'll take a certain number of coins from our bag, compare the values we've placed on them, and whoever has put the highest value and says whether or not he's in favor of a vote, well, he'll be right. Whoever sets the highest value is the one who decides that's it. So here are the different votes that can be cast in an artifact game. The first thing is a priority claim. When a hierarchical order is established at the start of a round, you can say, "No, I wanted to play first. No, I wanted to play second." In this case, a vote is called, and the players say whether or not they agree with this player taking the place of the other in the hierarchy. This is simply so that they can be in a different place in the hierarchic order. Then there are 2 possible votes during an edification phase. You can contest the duration of a confrontation, the number of rounds in a confrontation. In the same way, you cast a vote. The other players say whether or not they are in favor by putting in a certain number of coins. The player who has put in the most coins decides what he wants. However, the duration of the confrontation cannot be less than 3. During a building phase, you can also contest the date of the confrontation, so you can bring a confrontation phase closer or further away. Likewise, you can cast a vote in this context. However, you can't move the clash date more than once in the same building phase. If you're in the confrontation phase, then you'll have two voting options. You can be at the start of the round and cast the most horrible vote there is in the game, namely bribing the referee. You can vote for a player you think is too strong or whatever for any number of reasons. And if the vote you're about to cast is in your favor, in the next round, the player you've designated will only play one action in that round. It's pretty violent when you think about it, but it makes for great interaction. And finally, the last vote you can cast during a game is to contest the placement of a bonus that has appeared on the field. Bonuses, by the way, are these tokens. You can say, I don't want it there. If the vote is in your favor, you reposition the prestige bonus with the famous 2x2 dice to place it back in the arena. So much for the voting system. I know it's a lot, but we're not done yet. That leaves the famous die 6. The 6 is called the plot. When a 6 is revealed under your hiding place, i.e. at the end of a preparation phase, all players who have revealed a 6 will be able to create a law. Now, hang on, because it's a bit dense. You have these different cards numbered from 1 to 8. These are conditions, numbers, etc. Even words that will define a law that will appear at the start of the next confrontation phase. But you're going to prepare it before the confrontation phase. All players who have chosen a 6 will be able to choose a card to add to the law. So for example, he takes this one. This one means contains and places it face down in the law line. And the idea is that each player will take one of these cards, which go from 1 to 8, and place them in order to define a law. One by one, each player chooses one until they have a closed sentence from 1 to 8. Most importantly, if you've placed several 6s under your cache, then when you pick up a law card, you can pick up one more for every 6 you've placed. So you'll be placing several each time it's your turn. For example, the player has chosen contains. Another player has chosen mirrored reinforced armor. Another player chose arrow. Another player a minus. You turn again and come to a 4. The next player puts down this card, which means point of defense. And a player closes the sentence with the artifact on the left and the end of the sentence on the right, quite simply. And so this law, all it says is that artifacts containing reinforced armor lose -4 defense. So during the next phase of confrontation, this will be the law, and you'll be able to put quite a few things in this law. There are conditions where artifacts have either this or that element in their machine. You can add hit points, remove hit points, add coins, remove coins, all kinds of things like that, which allow the law to be really varied. There's only one card per type, and you can make 2 card combos of 3, i.e. contains not an element, and 2 combos of 5, 6, 7, i.e. minus plus a number and an element such as defense, movement, hit points, etc. On the other hand, if you place an 8, you can't place another 5, 6, 7, provided there's already a 5, 6, 7. As for the 1, it will prevent you from placing any more 2s and 3s, provided that a 2 and a 3 are already defined. That's how you create a law, and it will reveal itself when the next phase of confrontation begins. Now, if there are several management phases, players can modify the law. Indeed, once players have made their first law, they will be able to put money on that law in order to protect it, because the next time players want to modify the law, they will have to pay a sum greater than the sum that was put in defense of the law. And so, having spent all that, they'll then be able to change the law, but without spending, they won't have the right. It's pretty cunning. It can bring some pretty crazy things into the arena. It can really set up a kind of tension between the players, where they say, but wait, I want this, but no, I want this instead. In short, it can be messy and shadowy. Finally, it adds a huge amount of interaction to the game. But if you like a bit of bickering between players, this is the module for you. That's it for today. These were the last artifact modules. There's only one artifact rule video left to show you. That's the different game modes. It'll be a lot shorter and a lot less complex, believe me. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, there's always the Artifact Kickstarter page coming up very soon in the top right-hand corner over here. Stay tuned, make this game happen, and I'll see you next time. Until then, I say bye. See you.